Hello, this is Mr. Buffington, and we're going to get started with our lesson on solving equations. This will have to do with solving equations using addition and subtraction. Two things to remember when we're solving equations. First one is monkey see, monkey do. And that's also known as the property of equality. Whenever you do something to one side of the equal sign, you have to do it to the other side of the equal sign. And we'll see that done over and over and over. The second thing to remember is that you want to get the variable by itself, on its own. This is also called isolating the variable. You just want to get that variable by itself. So here's an example of addition, an equation with addition. 1 plus x equals 8. You could look at that and go, well, 1 plus 7 is 8. So you know x is 7, but we're going to go through the process so that when the questions become more complicated, we understand the process. So first of all, we're going to try and get x completely by itself. To do that, we're going to get rid of this 1. Or in other words, we're going to subtract 1 from both sides of the equal sign. See, 1 plus x minus 1. And then 8 minus 1. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side of the equal sign. And that gets rid of this, because 1 minus 1 is 0. We're left with x by itself on the left side, and 8 minus 1 is 7. As we had said before, we can check our work by substituting it back into the original equation. That answer of x equals 7. Just plug it right in there. 1 plus 7 equals 8. Yes, it does. Alright, and that's the process that we're going to follow as we solve these equations. We're going to make sure we do whatever we do to one side of the equation, we have to do to the other, so that we can isolate our variable by itself. If this is addition, if we're adding numbers on, you'll find we use subtraction to get rid of those numbers. And when we're subtracting numbers, as in this question, to get rid of minus 20 from the right side of this equation, we're going to have to add 20 to both sides of the equation. You see that? So 54 is equal to a minus 20. What I need to do is I need to get a all by itself. So a minus 20. To get rid of that minus 20, I have to add 20. Now it's a minus 20 plus 20. Those two will cancel each other out, and I'm left with just a on the right side of the equal sign. 54 plus 20 is 74. So I know my value for a is 74. I can also make sure to do that check. 54 is equal to a minus 20. I'm going to substitute the value of 74 into the equation where I see a. So is 54 74 minus 20? Yeah, it absolutely is. Thumbs up. This guy's a little over the top, but I thought it was pretty funny. I wonder how long he posed to take that picture. Okay, act completely ridiculous and over the top. Alright, that one's perfect. Alright, a couple more questions using addition and subtraction where we're going to try and isolate our variable. When you have a question like this, remember, everything you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. So, first off, we're going to get rid of these parentheses just to make them a lot less complicated. This is using the distributive property that we've talked about before. Essentially what I did was I distributed that negative and multiplied it times each term inside of the parentheses. So negative times negative x gives me a positive x. Negative times 5 gives me a negative 5. And now I have an equation that I can work with. Alright, so the first step in this case was to get rid of those parentheses. They're annoying, they're in the way, get rid of them. And then we have this. Now I have x minus 5. I'm going to have to add 5 to both sides of the equal sign. So now I have x minus 5 plus 5. Those two will cancel out. And I have to make sure to add that 5 to both sides of the equal sign, giving me x is equal to 7. I'll check my work by substituting it back into the original equation. I'm substituting the value of 7 in everywhere I saw the number x, or the letter x. So it became 2 minus negative 7 plus 5. First I'm going to solve inside the parentheses. Negative 7 plus 5 gives me negative 2. Negative negative 2 gives me a positive 2. Woohoo! We're doing it. We're getting there. So that's how we're going to solve each of those problems. The wonderful thing about YouTube is that I can talk real fast and you can pause it if you need to see all of this again. This way we can go through as many examples as possible in short as time as possible. So again, if I'm talking real fast, you can make sure to pause that and look through all the steps here and make sure you understand where each part is coming from for each step. The last question we're going to do is an absolute value question. The absolute value of x minus 6 is equal to 15. Whenever you have an absolute value question, you divide it into two parts, x and negative x. Now, you can either take negative what's inside there, or you can make everything else outside of it negative, and it works out exactly the same way. In this case, I thought it was easier to just go with x and negative x and to solve each of these questions. So with the absolute value, I'll start by solving the positive. X minus 6 equals 15. To get x by itself, I'm going to have to add 6 to both sides of this equation. See, minus 6, if I add 6, it'll cancel it out, and I'm left with just x on the left. But I have to have my 15 plus 6, in other words 21, on the right side. So x is equal to 21. We'll go over here to this side. I have negative x minus 6. Again, I'm going to have to add 6. You'll see it looks a lot like that. When I add 6 to both sides, I end up with negative x is equal to 21. Unfortunately, I'm trying to get x by itself. So when I have a negative x, to get that by itself as just an x, I will have to multiply both sides by negative 1. So this one's a little bit more complicated. It has multiplication involved. And that one's, it seems a little bit tough, but again, everything you do to one side of the equal sign, you do to the other. If you want to get rid of negative x, you multiply it by negative 1. Because a negative times a negative gives you, that's right, the positive. So x is now positive, and 21 becomes negative 21. Another way to look at that is you're just swapping. Changing this side to negative, or to positive, and that side to negative. Alright, but this is actually what you're doing, multiplying each side by negative 1. And this is what we'll do for absolute values. Whenever you see an absolute value, you're going to have two solutions. And the reason for that is if I plug 21 into there, 21 minus 6 equals 15. That's true. But if I plug negative 21 in there, the absolute value of negative 21 is positive 21. And 21 minus 6 is 15. So both of these answers are correct. So it's 21 and negative 21. Those would be the solutions to this question when you get absolute values involved. I hope that that lesson's been helpful for you. Yahoo! Have a wonderful day.